Section 1 Geography Shapes Life in Japan. The islands of Japan are just the tops of undersea mountains and volcanoes, and the nearness of the seas shaped the lives of Japanese people. Because they lived on islands, the Japanese were separated from the people of Asia. More about Japan. They even made their own culture and social structure, and separation has always been a part of Japan. Seafood is a key part of Japan's diet for thousands of years, and because it is difficult to farm on mountain slopes, most Japanese people lived on flat areas. Who were the Ainu? Some people think that the Ainu came from Siberia, and whoever lived south of them were considered Ainu. And the Ainu was one of the cultures that Japan developed. Who was Prince Shotoku? He brought Chinese ideas to Japan, and he served as a regent for 28 years. He sent scholars to China to learn about the Chinese. Prince Shotoku worked to change people's minds about Buddhism, and a regent is a person appointed to administer a country because the monarch is a minor or is absent or incapacitated. Section 2. The art. The nobles made their own imperial court. They also had wardrobes full of many things. Many nobles called themselves dwellers among the clouds. Their wardrobes were full of silk robes and gold jewelry. Who was Lady Murasaki? One of the greatest writers in Japanese history, and she wrote Tale of Genji. When she writes, she describes court life in Japan. Lady Murasaki was a noble, and she was a servant to Empress Akiko, and she lived in Heian. What is Zen? A form of Buddhism in the 1100s that arrived from China. As the Japanese warriors gained influence, so did Zen Buddhism, and Zen Buddhists believed that neither faith nor good behavior led to wisdom. Section 3. Military Society. Japan's large landowners are called daimyo. They hired samurai to protect their land. Powerful nobles fought each other over land. This fighting made it difficult for peasants to grow food. About samurai. The word samurai comes from the Japanese word to serve. Men and women of samurai learned how to fight. The samurai were trained professional warriors. The samurai wore light armor and fought with swords and bows, and most samurai came from noble families and inherited their positions from their fathers. What is a figurehead? It's a person who appears to rule, but someone else has power. The Minamoto leader had to be loyal to the emperor. The Minamoto leader was the most powerful in Japan. Who are the shogun? A general who ruled Japan. The common people had to treat the shogun with respect. The shoguns were in the fight against the Mongols. They lost their authority by the 1400s. What is Bushido? They were the rules that the samurai followed. Bushido means way of the warrior. Men and women from samurai families had to follow the Bushido rules. What is a kamikaze? It's a storm that saved Japan. Another name for a kamikaze is divine wind. The kamikaze was able to sweep the entire Mongol fleet. Who was Oda Nobunaga? He supplied his soldiers with guns that were brought to Japan from Portuguese traders. This was the first time guns had been used in Japan. Who is Tokugawa Ieyasu? He rose to power and conquered his enemies after Oda died. From the capital of Edo, Tokugawa ruled all of Japan, and in 1603, Japan's emperor made Tokugawa shogun. What is shogunate? Tokugawa began shogunate, which is the rule of shoguns of the Tokugawa. The shogunate lasted until 1868. Christians in Japan. The Japanese Christians lived in West Japan, and they were able to get into Japan if it wasn't for Japan's trading. Why was there isolationism? Not all the shoguns who followed Tokugawa liked the contact with the world. Some feared that Japan would be too much like Europe, and in the 1630s, the ruling shogun closed Japan off from the rest of the world. I would like to thank the book because if I didn't have the book, I wouldn't be able to do the PowerPoint.